Welcome to The Explainer. We're diving into the incredible story of Bulgaria today. I mean, this is a nation that was literally forged at the crossroads of empires, with a history that stretches back thousands of years. So what is the link? Well, it all points to one place, the land we now call Bulgaria. Think about it. This is a place where you have ancient goldsmiths and, on the other hand, medieval scholars, both leaving these huge legacies that changed the world. It kind of makes you wonder, right? How did one single country produce two things that are so different but so important? Okay, so to really get a handle on Bulgaria, you gotta go way back. I mean, way back. Let's start peeling back the layers of history, because this land has always been this crucial bridge between East and West.
I mean, just look at this timeline. The depth of history here is just, wow. It all starts with some of Europe's very first farmers. Then you get the Varna culture, and get this, they're the ones who created the world's oldest processed gold. That's insane. After them, the Thracians show up. These guys were legendary warriors and amazing metalworkers. Of course, eventually the Roman Empire rolls in and takes over. But when Rome started to fade, Slavic tribes moved into the area, mixed with the people already there, and that set the stage for something entirely new. So, with all those different peoples and cultures mixed together, what happens next? Well, this is where it gets really interesting. Let's see how that ancient foundation gave rise to a seriously powerful empire. An empire that didn't just rule the Balkans, but created a cultural legacy we're still feeling today.
All right, so check this out. The year is 681 AD. The Bulgars and the local Slavs team up, and they're so strong they actually force the mighty Byzantine Empire to sign a peace treaty. A treaty that recognizes their new state. This wasn't just some small tribe getting together. No, this was the birth of the first Bulgarian Empire. And just like that, you've got a brand new, major player in Europe. And this empire? It got big. During its golden age, especially under rulers like Simeon the Great, Bulgaria wasn't just some little kingdom. No way. It was a genuine European superpower, right up there with the Byzantines and the Franks. But here's the kicker. Its most important contribution wasn't military might. It was culture. Its scholars created the Cyrillic script. Think about that. This brand new alphabet gave millions of Slavic people the power to write in their own languages for the very first time. It was a total game changer, carving out a unique cultural space, different from the Latin West and the Greek East.
So the first empire eventually falls to the Byzantines, and you'd think, okay, that's it. But nope. The story doesn't end there. In 1185, they rise up in a successful rebellion and bring the Bulgarian state back. This second empire has its own golden age, a huge revival of art and literature, but sadly, they started fighting among themselves. And that internal weakness made the empire break apart, right at the worst possible moment, because a huge new threat was on the horizon, the Ottoman Turks. And that brings us to a really tough part of the story. When the Second Empire fell in 1396, it kicked off a long, dark chapter. We're talking about nearly 500 years of Ottoman rule. This was a time of incredible hardship, a period that would test the very idea of what it meant to be Bulgarian. Life under the Ottomans was harsh. The Bulgarian nobility, gone, wiped out. The people were crushed by heavy taxes, including something called the devshirme, the blood tax, which was just unbelievably brutal. They would forcibly take Christian boys from their families to serve the empire. They tried to suppress the culture, but they never fully snuffed it out. Tucked away in remote monasteries, monks and priests kept the language, the faith, and the national identity alive. They were protecting the seeds of a national revival that would, centuries later, finally start to grow. And that fight for freedom, it came at a staggering cost. 30,000, that's the estimated number of Bulgarians who were killed when they rose up against the Ottomans in April 1876. The response was just savage. The massacres were so horrific that they sent shockwaves across Europe. And finally, the major powers realized they had to step in. And that intervention came in the form of a war, the Russo-Turkish War. Russia stepped in, but they weren't alone. Bulgarian volunteers fought right alongside them, and their role was absolutely critical, especially at the legendary Battle of Shipka Pass. Together, they defeated the Ottomans. And with that victory, 500 years of foreign rule came to an end. The modern nation of Bulgaria was born.
Okay, so freedom is won. But it's not exactly a happily ever after situation. The struggle was far from over. Building a modern nation in the 20th century, it turned out to be a messy, chaotic, and incredibly turbulent ride, full of wars and massive political changes. Here's the problem the new state faced. It was strong, but it felt incomplete. See, the treaty that created it, the Treaty of Berlin, left a lot of ethnic Bulgarians living outside its new borders. This created this intense nationalism, this desire to unite everyone. The country became super militarized, so much so that they called it the Balkan Prussia. And that intense drive for unification, it dragged them into the devastating Balkan Wars and then into World War I on the losing side. And the political whiplash of the 20th century, it's just dizzying to think about. In less than 100 years, Bulgaria goes from a monarchy to an Axis ally in World War II. And here's an amazing part of the story. During that time, it did something remarkable and refused to deport its Jewish population, saving them from the Holocaust. Then, boom, a Soviet-backed coup flips the country on its head and it becomes a communist state for the next 45 years. That is until 1989, when the regime collapses and Bulgaria finally starts its journey toward democracy. So, okay, we've gone through empires, golden ages, centuries of occupation, wars, revolutions. It's been a whirlwind. So what about now? What does Bulgaria look like today? Let's take a look at where it stands on the world stage. On the one hand, modern Bulgaria is totally integrated into the West. It's a member of both NATO and the EU. It's got a high-income economy, but it's also facing some really serious challenges. Its biggest one might be a demographic crisis. The population has been shrinking ever since the fall of communism. On top of that, it's battling a reputation for having the highest levels of perceived corruption in the entire EU, and that's a huge source of frustration for a lot of people. And if you look at the population today, you can still see that long history as a crossroads. The vast majority are ethnic Bulgarians, of course, but you also have large Turkish and Roma communities that have been part of the fabric of the country for centuries. And that brings us to one of its biggest modern hurdles, political instability. I mean, just look at this. 5 parliamentary elections in just 2 years. It's just this constant cycle of political deadlock, which makes it nearly impossible to make the big, long-term changes needed to fix things like corruption or that population decline we talked about. But here's what's so fascinating. Despite all these modern-day struggles, Bulgaria's connection to its ancient past is still incredibly alive. You still have traditions today, like the Nestornatstvo fire dancing, that have roots stretching all the way back to the Thracians. It's really a powerful reminder of a culture that has just refused to die out, no matter what was thrown at it. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, the one word that really comes to mind is resilience. This is a nation that built an empire, held on to its identity for 500 years under foreign rule, and then survived a century of nonstop turmoil. Which leaves us with a big question for today. How does a nation with such a powerful history of survival navigate the challenges of the 21st century and write the next chapter of its incredible story?